We just have a tremendous panel for you today with really experienced practitioners. So I'm very excited to be able to be part of bringing that to you. As a little bit of a run-up, I'm just going to give a fairly brief and high-level context setting about the relationship of model risk management and AI journeys in general for large organizations. But like I said, I think you'll be very impressed with the level of experience that our panelists have in terms of being practitioners. And then there'll be obviously some opportunity for question and answer. So let's get right into it. I mean, really today in 2021, model risk management programs have different challenges that they're faced with AI journeys in general. And when we talk about scale, it's really scale on a lot of levels of a lot of different levels, not just technical scale, organizational scale, complexity. What is really the relationship of model risk management and AI governance and AI journeys in general? At ModelOp, we are the leading vendor of ModelOp solutions. ModelOps is an emerging term for the general operation of AI models in a large organization. And of course, that has a very strong relationship with model risk. And so we'll try to understand both that relationship and how things are evolving both ways. So let's start with kind of looking at how the market is talking about ModelOps and its relationship to risk and regulation in general. On the left here, you see a recent State of ModelOps survey. Over 100 executives from AI-focused companies, top global financials were surveyed. And these are just some of the results that are picked out that are really focused on risk. 80% of respondents said difficulty managing risk is a barrier to AI adoption. 78% said that model inventories that are currently installed are not really effective in the current AI landscape or only somewhat effective. And 70% said given the challenges, the current challenges of AI investments, the current systems for maintaining audit trails are not effective or only somewhat effective. I think that's really, those are important results in terms of what your peer organizations are saying about existing capabilities around risk and the coming challenges and the current challenges around AI models in production. On the right is actually what the regulators are saying. So the Federal Trade Commission, this is a quote here, it's important to hold yourself, and by yourself, I mean the organization, accountable for your algorithm's performance. And as we know in the AI journey, algorithms are those recipes that really create models. Models are the ones that make decisions. So you can somewhat read this, hold your models accountable. And also the shot across the bow, if you're not holding the organization isn't being held accountable for the decisions that models are making, then the regulators will step in and do it for you. So this is the classic regulation, say, let's learn how to police and govern ourselves first. So, why is it, if we come back to the left side, that there are so many challenges? Model risk management systems have been around at the enterprise level for at least since 2008. Models are been an important part of decisioning in businesses and financial services and other companies forever. So what is different today about the AI landscape and models that are generally associated with that and the systems that have been in place and have been working well for decades, if not longer? Why are governing models and operating these AI models in production so hard? Well, they're really, in our experience, as a ModelOps vendor, and you can kind of think of ModelOps as a superset of all of the operational things, including risk, including data ops, the data science part, anything that is any type of process or system that touches a model in its lifetime, that's ModelOps or model operations. So, and governance is obviously a big part of that. Why is that so hard today? The real three pillars of difficulty first start with there are multiple teams, as I mentioned. Models are not just data science assets. They're not just risk-bearing assets. They're not just software assets or data assets. They're all of those things and more. And so when we talk about operating them in production, it's not just about multiple teams collaborating. It's about multiple teams integrating systems. And integrating systems is not trivial. It's hard. It's real work. So it's not just, oh, we have to agree. We have to agree and then implement our agreement in real systems with respect to having all of the models operating appropriately across the enterprise. So as an example, you may have multiple model inventories today for a comprehensive enterprise-wide ModelOps capability where risk is, I would say arguably the driver today for ModelOps in general, being able to evolve risk systems, being able to handle not only today, but the coming influx of AI models. Just integrating inventories is kind of a non-trivial challenge. The second pillar is, this is, the good news is, especially with risk involved in model operations, there are a lot of very well-defined manual processes, lots of them. But they haven't been automated. So when we talk about scaling to a large number of models, the ability to enforce those processes, track those processes, create a full audit trail around that requires the automation of many processes that are not just technical, they're governance-oriented. Who approved the model? What kind of regulatory tests have been, conducted on them? Which of those have regulatory exposure? What reports have been generated? What is the full life cycle? All of those processes in an AI context, if they're not automated, the whole system won't scale. And finally, it's not always obvious, but as I mentioned before, models obviously have been part of the business decisioning structure for decades, and in many businesses like financial businesses forever. What's different about models in their relationship to the enterprise? Well, as we started to see in 2008, models became enterprise assets because they generated enterprise risk, organizationalized risk. But now in 2021, AI models really are, all AI models become enterprise assets. So the evolution of models from really business unit assets to enterprise assets at the first class is something relatively new and challenging in the enterprise journeys that organizations are on. So, to kind of sum it all up, this is an unprecedented requirements for bridging technical, data science, business, and governance functions if AI initiatives are going to have the anticipated and tracked and accountable impact that justifies the just massive investment in model building that has happened over the last few years around AI investments. So you can think of model operations as kind of the ultimate insurance policy to ensure that models are delivering the value that they were hoped to predicted to deliver for an organization. So what does good look like, right? And I just kind of throw out this on the upper left of this slide is a screenshot from ModelOps Center, our ModelOps, specifically designed for very large enterprises. But this could be for any type of ModelOps capability. What are the key performance indicators for all of the AI model risk management controls? On the upper left is kind of it may not be super easy to see, but the wide view. Which models in production? How many? How many of them are compliant? How many of them are not compliant? How many of them are nearing some sort of expiration? And from there, we would want to be able to click in, like on the right, and see those typical model risk management type of metrics, things like population score stability and characteristic stability, et cetera, right? So both the global view and the drill-in view. But importantly, on the bottom left, we don't want to just know where are our models today. We want to know how did they get there, where did they come from, where are they today, and really where are they going? And so on the bottom left, you see a process control, process automation notation that shows a life cycle of the model. Here, the model has to do these tests. Then it has to do this type of report has to be generated. Then it goes to an approval process where a human does have to approve, but we have a record of that. Then there's a software part of the journey where it has to go through various stages of data ops or DevOps to become a RESTful service to somehow deliver actual decisions like who's going to get a loan, who's going to get a raise, who might be someone that needs to be looked into more carefully in terms of risk for the organization. So all of that life cycle needs to be not only documented, but automated. And so that's kind of what good looks like from our experience in the large enterprise around ModelOps and the relationship of things like risk to ModelOps. But how do we get there, right? And what is the organizational structure? And what is the kind of journey that different organizations have been on? So this gives you, again, kind of a high level or more stylized view at ModelOps as an enterprise capability, something that becomes foundational for AI orchestration in general. As again, AI is one of the largest investments that, if not the biggest and most impactful investment that many organizations have made ever in there, because it's changing the decision-making fabric of the organization. There are really two halves, again, of the AI journey. There's the building of the models, which continues to be, as it always has been, a business unit function. And you can see on the left, the model factories. This is where, in the modern parlance, the data scientists use model factories or data science platforms within their business unit context to make potentially valuable models, whether, again, in any aspect. It could be fraud detection, it could be pricing, it could be trades, it could be who gets a credit card, who gets a loan, who should be marketed to, what are the recommendations for various sales functions of the organization, how to do supply chain optimization, who to buy from first, all of those critical business unit functions. We still have the modeling done there, and the data science platforms being utilized by the different data scientists in those different business unit functions. Back to the survey, again, in our own experience in our customer base and those who are looking at ModelOps Center as a ModelOps platform, we see that all large enterprises have at least 4 or 5 major model factories and data science platforms, and all of them are looking to put more in, not less. So that left side is not consolidating anytime soon that we've seen. On the bottom are all of the existing enterprise-wide services. Everything from data services, because obviously different models need different data for both production and ideation and generation, DevOps, IT ops, risk and compliance, which is really the only model-aware enterprise function that exists today. And then, of course, the line of business itself, right? We've invested millions of dollars in building models. What kind of return are we getting? Is it actually raising the top line? And of course, IT ops. These are technical assets that have to be operating day in, day out, 24/7. So those are the enterprise services on the bottom. What comes into that is the models. The models, again, now become enterprise assets. And all of the things in the middle are the things that have to happen to operate them. And so what we've seen the market organize around is a capability called ModelOps. Folks like Gartner and others are talking widely about this. Software solutions like our ModelOps Center, enabling that efficiently and cost effectively, but really a new function that's owned jointly by risk and technology and enables model operators, that's a term we're hearing more and more, that are like IT operators or risk operators. These are day in, day out people who can look at that global view like we saw, generate reports, be able to be very clear if they have, with whatever ModelOps system they're using, they can tell you exactly how many models are in production. These are the production models, where they are in their life cycle, be able to give a full audit and ensure that all of the requirements are met. Regulatory reports are generated, approvals are driven through an automated process, all the monitoring and technical nuances. Sometimes we call the MLOps, or the intersection between model factories and model operations. All of that has to be managed, automated, and auditable from a ModelOps capability. And then the enterprise AI architects, which should be able to articulate those model life cycles like we saw in the last slide, but because these tend to be folks that come from enterprise IT, because they have the organizational visibility about the services on the bottom, and they have the business unit relationships to understand that different models need different life cycles. Some might need to go through regulatory compliance. Some might take data from an Oracle database. Other models might be taking production data from a Snowflake or a Databricks. Each model, unlike software, has very unique requirements. So the enterprise AI architect is responsible for kind of articulating the automation process for models in general. So this is, again, very high level, but we see over and over again the market kind of consolidating to this view of a capability at the enterprise level. So that's a little bit of context to think about the challenges that models present as enterprise assets in this age of AI. But I think the most important thing is to really listen to practitioners who may or may not have structure like this, but listen to your peer practitioners. We have a tremendous panel here